am a knitter. Hi, Jean. Like, subscribe, you know the drill. I talk about hand knitting. I am currently working my way through the Master Hand Knitter program from the TKGA. And at long last, I've got my binder back. And 11 pages of feedback that I have to go through. And I've read through it. I've come up with some ideas. I have a system that I would like to be using that requires that I highlight things in different colors so that I can identify what I need to do for a resubmission, what they said, "Ooh, you did a good job on this," and what I need to do to improve the overall quality of my knitting. And I've been thinking a lot about what I did well on and what I did not do as well as I had thought I would do on. And I have arrived at a conclusion. And then I went digging back through my mental history of times I was faced with something similar and said, you know, you're consistent in your likes and dislikes. And now that you have pointed them out to yourself and you are aware of them, what are you going to do about it? So I'm still thinking and still digesting, and it's a lot to digest. So, there will be more comments later, but I don't want to make any statements that are rash and not well thought out, because that's the kind of statement that people get grumpy about. And I don't want people getting grumpy when I'm just trying to convey information. Yes, I've gotten feedback. Yay, thank you, thank you, thank you. I will be looking into reviewing some of the applications that are currently available, either for free or for a very limited amount of money. I have no sponsors. I don't have enough subscribers to monetize. And in some ways, I'm not sure I want that. I'm not sure I want to appease a lot of people. I've realized, yes, as Elizabeth Zimmerman once said, she's an opinionated knitter. So am I. I did get a new microphone. I hope it's working well. That thing in my ear was not uncomfortable for me. I wear them for hours at a time, but I wasn't sure if it presented a, quote, professional appearance. Although, guess what, folks? I'm a knitter. I'm not a professional YouTuber. What am I working on right now? Well, I am analyzing my feedback, and I am continuing to work on my one skein wonder. It's coming along. I think I will probably have it finished perhaps by the end of today, definitely by the end of this week. I adore just knitting things. I've always been a maker. I've always enjoyed making things. I've always enjoyed talking about making things. And that's where I am right now. Knitting like mad on this. I'm still working on the Stephen West Mystery Knit Along. And I have, I admit, peeked at the finished shawl. And yes, I'm going to say I was right. Stephen doesn't give you a lot of strictures about what colors to use. He does have his very firm ideas about what will work for detail and what will not work for detail. Um, there are some stitches in there that I'm going to have to practice before I tackle, because they are the kind of stitches that I have tried in the past and have said, yeah, this is not fun. I've got to find a better way to do it, but I am not that motivated to do it at that scale. It was on socks, and it was a traveling stitch, just as he has, I hope this is not a spoiler, he has incorporated what I would call a traveling stitch into one of the patterns. Hope it's not a spoiler. It's a description. I guess y'all knew that was kind of coming. Excuse me. There aren't that many people who haven't peeked if they're doing the mystery knit along. I still want to respect those who do not want the spoiler and do want the surprise. I hope I haven't spoiled anything. I've really tried not to. But I will also tell you that I have not finished clue number 1 yet. It's a huge number of stitches. Good Lord. 22,500 stitches are reported to be in clue number 1. Clue number 2, 29,738 stitches. And clue number 3, oh, he lets us off easy, 11,024. That's a lot of knitting, folks. I haven't looked up the number of stitches in the final clue. I'm not sure I want to know. And I also know at that point, it's not going to make a difference. Back to Stephen not giving us restrictions, but he also doesn't give that much guidance because he doesn't really want to point us in one direction or other. But because I have peeked, I do know what I want my color variations to attempt to do. So I may change the color placement in some of the later clues to place more emphasis on certain parts of the pattern and de-emphasize other parts of the pattern so that it will make a whole that is more harmonious, in my opinion. That's the only person I have to please, folks. Me. I did look through my cover letter to the TKGA again for level 1, and I was reminded of some of the things that I was doing when I first started knitting. I remember sitting in the kitchen on a metal stool that holds a near and dear place in my heart, but man, that thing was lumpy and uncomfortable. But I was sitting on one side of the kitchen counter. My mom was working on the other side of the kitchen counter. And I'm sitting there practicing circular knitting on nothing in particular other than a tube using 4 needles, because we didn't have 5 needle sets at that time. They weren't available that frequently to those of us that knit in the US. Susan Bates Silverloom double-pointed sock needles in sets of 4. Yes, I still have a few of those. I use them a lot. What I was practicing at that time was not creating ladders as I changed from one needle to another needle. And I just knit round and round and round and round and round and round and round until I finally came up with a system that worked for me. I don't have ladders. I don't worry about ladders. Because at a very early age in my double-pointed knitting history, because there was no such thing as magic loop, and we didn't do 2 circular needles. We didn't have flexi flips. You knit on 4 needles, double-pointed needles, or you didn't make a small tube. I remember solving some of those problems. I remember telling people about double knitting, where you can make a tube by knitting back and forth, by slipping every other stitch and knitting and purling and working around. Well, you don't purl, you knit every other stitch around, and then you turn and you knit every other stitch around, and then you end up with a tube. But people were freaking out and saying, well, that's the hard way to do it. And I'm thinking, I don't think it's that hard, but I don't know if you'll get the tension you want. I remember suggesting Magic Loop to a more experienced, I thought, knitter who scoffed and said that's not going to work. I said, yes, it will work, but it might be a pain in the neck, but yeah, you could do it. She didn't think it was possible, and now it's common. I even let her know you had to get extra long double-pointed needles. The cable had to be extra long. But you must realize this was at a time when the cable on a double-pointed needle was not very flexible, often took a memory, and it was expensive to get one that was that long. Knitting changes. So now you guys have an update. You are not wandering around going, when's she going to get this back? What's going to happen? I did have a significant number of my swatches pass. A lot of my written stuff passed. I have minor edits to do here and there. I have stupid mistakes where I didn't read the pattern correctly. My bad. And I actually received an explanation for something that I could not find reference for anywhere other than the Knitters Guild Association. Well, my concern is if you're the only people that use it, why are you still using it? But I can't say that because they are using it for a very definite reason. And they're using it to define something very specific, but I'm not sure their question explained where they're using it and why. So when I'm going to research it, there's no way I could have found an answer because nobody else uses it that specifically. I don't know if that made sense. I'm not sure that made sense to me either. Don't try to parse that out. It's not worth the effort. I have been enjoying my knitting, remembering how much I love to make things, and thinking about taking a free pattern and changing the colors in it to use up some of the yarn that I purchased so that my stash does not grow exponentially. And it's always good to have a project. And I'm thinking it's either going to be one of the, oh my gosh, I actually have 3 shawls on the needles right now. One is very tiny, one is medium-sized, and one is the mystery knit-along. But I have a sweater's worth of yarn that I think will make a lovely, oh no, ranunculus. I'll let you know how that goes. I think I would like to even add beads to something, but I'm dithering on that one. I'll let you know what happens. And the next video will probably list some of the applications that I am planning to do a review on, so you guys will have an idea of what's coming next. In the meantime, the weather is getting colder. The leaves have turned for the most part. Some of them are hitting the ground. That's my husband's job. I don't do the leaf work. And it's wonderful weather to wrap up in something warm and knitted. So Y'all have a good day, and please keep knitting.